Welcome to this week's channel vloggy thing, a year's review. It's been a little more than a year because I launched on the 14th of July last year, 2022. I'm in the same location I was this time last year. So what have I learnt in that year? An awful lot, actually. I travelled from Red Hill Marina to down to Greater London, and it took me a month basically. Actually 3 weeks, because one of those weeks I was stuck at Foxton Locks trying to get a service kit for Barrowshire engine, and there was no oil on the island, so I had to wait around. So travelling from Nottingham Red Hill Marina to Uxbridge, I did 140 locks and 141 miles and four tunnels and 2 swing bridges. I was a man on a mission trying to get to see my children for their birthday. So in that time, in total, I have done 301 miles, 316 locks. I've travelled through 8 tunnels. Okay, some of them are the same. There's the Saddington Tunnel, can't remember it. Husband's Bosworth, I can just about remember that one. Blissworth, I've done that a few times. Crick, Braunston, done that a few times, but I've learnt a lot in that time, and I've tweaked quite a bit. I went through the design of this boat. It was built to my specification. Everything on it was, I agreed in design as to that's what I want. But it's completely different when you're given something as there you go mate, there's the keys and off you go. It's a massive learning curve, and I think that anxiety basically is a matter of me getting over myself, but that took some time. But after a year, the boat looks pretty similar to what it did this time last year, to be honest, and that's thanks to the good work from Reeves, who built the shell, and the FitOut Pontoon, who did the interior design and fit out. I cannot be more happier with the condition state of the boat. And you could say, well, it's only a year old. Yeah, but it doesn't look any different. It's got some battle scars on the outside, but actually living on the boat, I knew the square root of all, basically. I knew nothing on the boat, and absolutely knew nothing. But what hit me hard was how loneliness would affect me. I don't think I was necessarily lonely as an individual. I think it was just a new way of life that was completely different to what I was used to. You know, living in a house, bricks and mortar, with a postcode, and everything is situated around bricks and mortar and a postcode. You can't live without a postcode today. You can't even get a CRT license, even though my home is the boat. I need to mortgage the goodwill of somebody else in order to use their postcode. And this is something I've just recognised. You see, having travelled from Nottingham to Uxbridge, Uxbridge to Braunston, Braunston back to Uxbridge, when I hit the second time of travelling through somewhere, I used to walk all around the villages and the towns, and I would know those places. Coming back here, I had a felt of normality. And also around this area you have fuel boats, and there's a poo boat for those that need it. And there's all sorts of things that the setup round here is actually quite good. And I also knew some people. There was Christian that I came to back and popped in to see. It was familiarity, I can say it now, can't I? Now I don't need to say it. There was a familiarity about it all. And I understand when people who continuously cruise and they only do the 20 miles necessary to obtain your license, they know exactly where to moor. I spoke to Christian and he knows exactly where he's going to moor, almost to the spot. So does his cat. So there's familiarity for Christian and the people he surrounds himself with, because they all do much of a muchness and do the same thing. But when you move outside the parish, then you're travelling in somewhere new. And if you're doing that as a couple, then I think you've got mutual support. If you're doing it on your own, well, you're travelling always somewhere new. And I think those were the little things that got me and made me feel lonely. But I think it takes a while. Well, it took me a while to get used to it, and it took me a while to understand not only it's a new way of life, a new boat. I come from an organisational background which was very structured, very organised, very disciplined, as you would imagine, and now it's not. It took its toll. But after I gave myself a good stiff talking to around March, April this year, when the weather started to warm up and I started to get used to it, things started to work out for me. Now, the winter time was for me quite difficult. I could light the fire easy. Keeping it going, well, I found that difficult. But when all this is said and done, living on the canal and living in a narrowboat can't be too difficult, can it? People go on holidays and they hire boats out. None of this is difficult. So it is just a frame of mind. But I think there's a difference if you are living on a narrowboat, have one as a residential mooring in a marina. I get it. It's not that difficult. But there's certain things on this boat which have caused me a little bit of a headache. Let's start from the big ticket items. The freezer. The fridge. Now, the fridge and the freezer are on a 240 volt system. So they're household integrated fridges and freezers. Why did you get that? Well, I got that because, well, by and large, they last, and they're easier to exchange, and they're cheaper to exchange, and they're generally bigger. And I thought it was a good idea. But it does mean that I need the inverter on all the time, so that means I need an electrical system that makes all that work. So I went lithium. There's a reason why I went lithium, is because I can use all of the amp hours, well most of them anyway, in the battery. I've got 500 amp hours in the battery, and the battery will alarm when I've used 80% of them. In fact, it turned itself off at 80%. Now that thing there says I've got 66% of battery state, and I'm drawing 18, well nearly 19 amp hours. And the solar is producing 28. That's how much water I've got. That's how much fuel I've got. That's my central heating system. And all of that wiggly amps type of stuff which I know nothing about. These are one of the things that I had to acclimatise myself to, in a way where I have to accept my battery will never be 100% unless I've moved. Well, not strictly true, because there are times it goes to 100% when there's been enough sun, and when I've been in a position to collect that sun and it's not been inhibited by trees or clouds. So by and large, this boat will use 20% of that battery every night, and during the day it will get charged up by solar or ambient light or something similar. Well, those two things really. More power comes in than power leaves, but over night time when there's no solar, clearly power leaves faster than it comes in. So throughout, let's take this week as a classic example. I arrived a week ago at 100%. I'm at 66% now. When I go to bed tonight, or when the light goes, it might go as much as 80%. And it does that throughout the week, and I've never had to charge my battery. If I've got uninhibited sun, then those solar panels will charge that up to 100%, no dramas. Which leads me on to solar power. I have two solar panels. They're Panasonic thingies, and they're 360 watts each, giving me a grand total of 720. Now, could I have got more? Answer, yes. Should I have got more? Answer, depends. You see, those 720 watts of solar thingies, as I've said, when there's sun all day, they charge my battery up to 100%. Now, like I am here, where you have trees in the way, clouds in the way, I'm not totally best for solar, because I need to move the solar panels and all the rest of it, tilt them and all that rubbish. By and large, they have hosted me with electricity for 1 week without running the engine. I think that's quite good. So do I need more? No. Would I have liked to had more? Yes. Is there enough solar wattage things to charge that battery thing to turn watts into amps and electricity? Yes. Is my battery at 100% all the time? No. Therefore, get over yourself, Chris. It does what it's supposed to do. It doesn't bother me now that my battery's not at 100%. It doesn't bother me that my battery's at 30%, because I've got used to understanding lithium. Now, it's been well documented on this channel what I think about this pram hood. I love it. It's a wet room, it's a dry room, it's a boot room, it's a bike storage room, amongst other things. And the reason why the bike's still in here is because it's rained most of the summer. Such a great place, and thanks to AJ Canopies, fantastic job. I'm so pleased with it. it's just life changer, game changer. If you don't have a pram hood and you've got the funds to get one, get one. But I'm so glad actually that I didn't have one to start off with, because I appreciate this so much more, so much more. Love it. The stove. This is a Hobbit multi-fuel stove. It has 4 kilowatts of energy, if I can make it work properly, which I now can, and I'm looking, I say with trepidation, looking forward to winter. Second time round, I come into this winter with a year's experience of making this thing work properly. It was told to me that it would take a year, it would take a season to get the stove working and to understand it. And I said to a fella called Colin, oh, I've got it sussed, I'm do a complete turn, that makes all the difference. He says, complete turn? I said, yeah. Wait till you get to quarter turns. Absolutely right. Those micro tweaks of the airflow that make such a difference. Now, I've got wood, I've got coal, but generally speaking, I got on better with coal. And the reason why, well, because it's more robust. When you light it and you shovel some coal on and get the fire hot, then if you work that airflow properly, then that coal can stay alive for a good 10 hours, keeping the boat warm. Wood, hotter, but doesn't last as long. Often I'll be on the sofa sleeping because I was toasty warm, waking up cold, but 2 hours later because the fire had gone out, because the wood burns, and then once it's burnt, it's gone. It doesn't last long. But I understand those people that go diesel, and I'm making massive assumptions here. The diesel continues going and you can burn it 24/7. It comes from a fuel tank or whatever tank it is, and once you get the boat up to a working temperature of whatever degrees you want it to be at, it can stay there 24/7. There's no stoking the fire, no emptying the ashtray, none of that. You've got more room in the crutch cover perhaps if you store wood there or coal there. Yeah, I get it. So, is that a mistake? No. Would I go diesel? Yes. Am I going to go diesel? Don't know. I'm happy with what it is. Now, you see, the end of winter time, having now worked out exactly what I need to do, I'll let you know at the end of next winter season whether I think the Hobbit is still the way forward, and it probably will be, to be honest. I'm not going to change a big ticket item like this until it's broken. So those are one of life's decisions that I've decided that's what I'm getting, that's what I've got to stick with. Job done. The television. Not an item of equipment I generally put on. Part of that is because it uses quite a lot of electricity, because once again it's 230 volt, 240 volt or whatever it is. It's a household television. It's a very good television. I only use it for the internet or via the internet, and when I want to do a movie night with the speaker below, fantastic. It is like being in the movies, but that doesn't happen that often. And the reason why, well, it's about what you find is important. Yes, I can put that on, and yes, I could watch telly, but I don't watch telly an awful lot anyway. But then, because of the amount of power it uses, there's a greater chance that this battery will be lower down in the percentage points. I mean, it's bad enough when I have to do some editing for this thing, for the YouTube, because my computer is probably the most hungriest bit of kit I've got on the boat. especially when editing. It's not my favouriteest room in the house. Look at me. But it is a room that I'm glad I have got. It's a library, it's a study. I do all my editing here. There's always camera gear out, because then it's out and I don't need to put it away each night, and it's not in the way, it's just in the office. But at the same time, it's also a bedroom. I don't know what I'd do with this kit if I needed to turn it back into a bedroom. Well, actually, quite easy. I'll just have to put stuff away. I sleep with Emma, or on Emma, every night, well, most nights, when I'm not snoozing on the sofa. Would I change Emma? No. I proper did my finger in. It's quite a deep cut, actually. I went out to Dan and I says, mate, I've cut my finger. There was claret all over the towpath. What did I do it on? Lowering down the solar panel, and I cut it on that triangle supporting thing. As the solar panel dropped, I trapped my finger between the solar panel and the supporting triangle, and as it slammed down, then my finger would, anyway. It wasn't necessarily painful, but it is painful now. Go to the doctors. Anyway, what I was going to talk about is the toilet. I do like those pictures in here, by the way. I have a compost separator toilet. I am very happy with it. However, it took some getting used to, because it's slightly higher than the normal household porcelain toilet, where you sit on it and it's lower, and that has positives to it. Now this is higher because you have a bucket to make some drop-ins in to last a bit of time. Now I've got one with a stirrer. Waste of time. So if you want to get a compost, I would absolutely recommend it, but don't get the stirring mechanism at the bottom. Complete and utter waste of time. Now I used to poo because of that stirring mechanism. I used to make my deposits in the bucket and stir it, and then all the poo would make marks around the bucket, and then you'd have to clean it. What I do now, well, horrible job. What I do now is put one of those eco plastic bags in there and do exactly the same thing. Don't stir or anything like that, just do my deposits and empty the bag. Now the bag is eco-friendly because within a week there's holes in it. But I don't mind, because you just have to wipe the bucket round. It's only moisture that gets in there. It's only moisture that's made that bag split. And my poo system, I think, works very well, and I contain my whole system on the boat, and I don't, you know, I think I do it ecologically and responsibly. Enough of poo. Draft excluders. I have draft excluders on all the hatches and all the doors because they were drafty. The wind in the winter whistles in onto the boat through, it gets into every orifice, and just drafty. So with draft excluders, which I fitted around January, February time, coupled with the fact that I was able to use the stove better, made a massive difference. People said to me about the colour of the boat, because I had a dark colour on the roof of the boat, people said to me, oh, you don't want that because it gets too hot in the summer. Yeah, okay, it does. I'm not saying too hot, but it does get warm in the summer. And that roof there, well, I'll tell you what, it's red as, absolutely red as, and so are the sides actually, because it's all a dark grey. However, it doesn't take long for that heat of the steel to transfer through the foam of the insulation and radiate the heat in this boat, so it's relatively warm. We're at nearly 30 degrees on the boat, and the sun's only been out, what, an hour, because it's been raining this morning. So it is quite warm. I like the heat, that's never been an issue for me. And it does mean in the autumn, and I worked this out last year, it does mean in the autumn that I don't need to light the fire in the autumn until probably early evening. And now I've sorted myself out with DVD players and all that sort of stuff in the bedroom, I would probably go to bed early evening, watch a DVD in bed, negating the use of putting a fire on. Portholes, porthole windows, double glazed windows, all that sort of stuff. Incy. Get out. Get out. Far too many inches. However, if it gets cold, I just put a bung in the window. I've got chicken tonight. Now, am I going to do it in the old Ridge Monkey, which is another massive improvement I've made on the boat? Well, I've bought for the boat. And the poofs, great. Just make life so much more comfortable when I'm having a television night, when I'm having a movie night. What's kept me sane also is doing this YouTube vlogging stuff. Frustrating as it is, because I find it is frustrating. It's kept me busy. I don't have a bored lifestyle. It's almost like a job, poorly paid job at that. Thank you for all those who have bought me coffees and supported me in other ways on the channel. You know, without doing this YouTube malarkey, boat going by, without doing this YouTube malarkey, I think I would be bored, and I think that would make me, well, read more. I mean, I haven't done an awful lot of reading since I've been on the boat, but doing these channel things, you know, takes time. And what I find difficult is you know, when you're traveling around, it's hard to bounce off someone when you're on your own. So I bounce off you. I tell you what I'm thinking, and by and large I think most people get it. I try and find content, and that's more difficult than it might appear, but I enjoy doing it. It stretches me trying to find content, in which case you have to get off the boat to try and find it, or you have to go and meet people to try and find it, or you just need to find it. So thank you for all you viewers that have viewed. I do appreciate it, and the communication I've had with various people on the towpath, people that have met me along the way, people that I've created conversations with. You know, there's John, who hosted me in Switzerland, there's Mel from Australia, there's Colin from America, there's Mark, who's in a marina, Jamie, who I met not so long ago. There's other YouTubers who I've met, AD and Haley, Narrowboat Nanny and Grandad, Lee and Ali, building their boat with some fella called Dave. But then there's also some people from school who I went to school with. Graham, who now lives in New Zealand. Then there's Blin, who's doing who I'm working with at the moment to create a merch line, clothing stuff, who's a graphic designer. Thanks very much, Blin. And there's people who I served with many moons ago who have got in touch with me, and you know, it's been great. The YouTube has been almost like a place where people can find you, the tuber, who you haven't met for such a long time, and do you know what, if you want to meet me and I'm in the area, by all means. There's been a few people that have stopped me. They said, "Oh, you're that fellow with the YouTube, aren't you?" I said, yeah, I am. And one comment I always get it. You're no different, are you? No, I am who I am. And if you like me, great. If you don't, that's the way life is. But please, if you want to reach out and get in touch, then I'm happy to do so, because things like this help me in other ways that perhaps you wouldn't ordinarily think. So it's a longer vloggy thing than I anticipated, to be honest. But thanks for watching, thanks for liking, thanks for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, give it a go, because I talk on this channel about narrowboats and people and life. So until I see you again, which if you're watching this it'll be Wednesday, and if you're not watching this some other time, it'll be some other time. But thanks for watching. Ciao.